All right, let's go ahead and get started. What we're hoping to accomplish today is we finally have a final draft of the solicitation. It's taken a minute to get it, but it's finally presentable to review with you and get your feedback. We're planning to be able to take a little slightly modernized approach to the way that it's entered in Oregon Buys, and Elizabeth can share more about that after let's go through the content of it first. So I don't want to simply read to you, but it's the opening paragraph is pretty standard language as far as solicitations with OHA go. So I'll give you a minute to read that.
Hi, Jamaica. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Jamaica.
Hello. Good to see everyone.
Nice to see you too. We're reviewing the content of the final draft of the solicitation. If we're able to get this, it's finally presentable to you all. If we can get your stamp of approval and we take any feedback today, we might be able to get this posted fairly soon. We'll talk more about that. We're kind of thinking maybe posting it for 8 weeks would be a good amount of time. Any questions so far on what you've read? Let's see, we're getting to the application phase. I was explaining, Elizabeth will explain more about this, but we're going to go with Smart Sheets, which is less burdensome for the applicants, and it's a great way to have things organized as they're coming in.
They make it larger. Is it getting blurry for you guys, or you can see it still?
This is good. This is better.
Okay, thank you.
If it's big, yeah.
Are you ready for it to be advanced to the?
I just have a suggestion, which is dropping reference to the bill number since it's not current, and then calling it by its formal name in statute, which I forget is like the mental health incentive fund. Or so there's where this money is parked has a name.
Oh, okay. So
The
yeah,
Behavioral Housing Incentive Fund.
Yeah, Community Mental Health Housing Fund, I think, right? The former sale of the Danish.
Yeah, I'd have to. Well, no. So this is not the damage stuff, right?
Okay.
This money comes from lottery bonds deposited into a special fund in the Treasury that has a name, and then the legislation that created this fund that was populated through a different appropriation, not attached to the bill, also created the advisory body that you're convening. So I'd have to go back. I know it moved in statute, and I don't have my notes in front of me, but it does have a formal name.
Okay, I captured that here. So thank you.
I think it'll make for a better impression.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Any other? Okay, that's very good feedback. Thank you. Are you ready to proceed beyond that part? We're getting into the project categories. Let's go ahead and scroll to that part, Layla. And show the whole chart.
The last meeting that I remember, we had not narrowed down the project areas, so this is all new for me, I think.
Yeah, I think the subsequent meeting, we did have 2 meetings, and where we landed was the majority of recommendations was to split the funding. And so that's what we did. There is some variance here from, we've added a little bit from what we had talked about in that meeting. So I'll give you a minute to read that.
Oh, thank you for, well, actually, I see juvenile PSRB, but not adult PSRB. That's the reason. That's the reason why I joined this council, was to weigh in on that, our needs.
So the PSRB, and so all the forensic aid and assist, civil commit and PSRB that all fits within the SRTF category.
Okay, I was hoping so.
Mhm.
I saw that. I was hoping so. Good, thanks.
So it's kind of an over the serious and persistent mental illness SPMI. It all fits under that umbrella.
Overarching, yeah.
And we heard this group talk about how the co-occurring disorders was super important. We really wanted to prioritize and elevate that. So depending on the different applications that we get in, we really want to make sure that we're reserving some funds to award for those topics.
Maybe this gets answered later, and it's tough reading a document in little chunks that I wish you had sent this out, and maybe you did, maybe I missed it in advance. It would have been helpful for me to see this. And again, take this comment with a grain of salt because it could get answered later in this document. But under housing types, in particular for mental illness, is there criteria by which people will score an SRTF against children's psychiatric residential treatment facilities? Like, this is a huge bucket.
Yeah.
These are vastly different things, and to compare one to the other in competition for funding would be very hard.
Yeah, and we're not, I mean, we did hear that, and we are going to be prioritizing trying to keep within the categories. I don't know how many applications we will get because this is a unique funding source with that 35% max of the overall budget cap. So it's going to be interesting to see how many applications we actually end up receiving.
That makes sense.
To speak to Chris's point too, do you remember when I mentioned that Sissy Bollinger and I had a conversation a while back, and you were actually part of that council, Chris, as well, for the Oregon Performance Plan Advisory Work Group. I had identified to her the importance of having awareness and compassion, attention for those that fall through the cracks as important too. So when we're prioritizing the applications, I hope that we can see that those that have been underserved need some attention. There's a lot of money going to a lot of communities now, but I've already mentioned one community that's been neglected, and there are others as well. So thanks for hearing me out.
Yeah, well, and that's I think the beauty of you all being part of this process.
Oh, thanks, Jamaica.
So I just sent it to you, Luke, Jamaica, Chris. I just sent you the document because I know it is frustrating to try to not be able to drive yourself through the document can be challenging. At least I find that to be challenging. So I apologize we didn't send that in advance. We just finalized it on Friday afternoon. So
thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Looks good.
Additional comments on categories before we move on?
One thing that I mentioned the last meeting that I was here for, I was concerned about the lack of peer supportive activities in residential programs. And there was interest from the other members in exploring this path, but I wanted to reiterate the peer-run respites have a lot of evidence of success where peers are providing the services. But I would like to see us expand beyond just that preventative crisis stage and see the importance of providing peer programs, residential locations for, say, like 370 populations and PSRB populations, and explore how providing more peer stimulus to get programs more common. There's a lot of emphasis on clinical providers that don't necessarily have peer experience providing services and supports. I just want to yeah.
Well, what we could do is we could add a question in there to ask them to describe what their peer support network looks like. I mean, that could be a response that we solicit.
I was going to say even the playing field, but level the playing field, but words escape me. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, so the services and the program side is out of our wheelhouse. We're going to be we're going to be evaluating the project proposal. But that doesn't mean that we can't ask that question to understand it, and then that
Excellent.
informs that piece.
Yeah, peer-run organization can get an application in just the same. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
Yes.
The Lotus House, great example. Please, I would like to muster some support to make that happen and expand beyond that. So that's a pilot, let's go.
I'm
I
not
wonder-
familiar with it,
Thank
but
you.
it sounds interesting. We may have to look that one up.
Addictions peer support, yeah, residential PSRB and 370. What's that one program that's got some of the beds in there too?
Is it M110 maybe?
It's like Aspire. Yeah, it's down in Eugene. Yeah, there's part of the beds that are for a different adjudicated population. 370 civil commit. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of focus on addictions, peer support, and some great programs outside of that, like automobile repair, family supports, really great peripherals programs too.
Oh,
Yeah, live, grow, share, exactly.
no.
Thank you. I'm so glad that somebody's aware of it.
I just realized I kind of jumped right in and had a start, and I didn't introduce our newest the team lead for the behavioral health investments team. So Megan, do you mind to come on and introduce yourself? And I'm so sorry I didn't do that at the
No,
beginning.
it's okay. I was like, we've got a lot to cover. LaDonna's so smart to get us going, and I am good at Google, so I've just been like, I'm gonna figure out who these
yeah.
people are. My name's Megan McLean, and I am the new you probably
Team
know
lead.
what OPA 4. Yeah, team lead. I was gonna say OPA 4, and then I was like, that's really department speak. That's not helpful. I'm the new team lead here working with LaDonna and Lisa and Layla and Lene. That's a lot of L's.
Mhm.
And Elizabeth.
I appreciate your support, Megan. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you all.
That was my only other comment. Thanks for
Was
asking.
about here. Yeah, thank you for that. Oh, let me share that. Let me send that to you, Megan. 1 second. Let me get that sent to you right this minute. We just finished it on Friday night, and so that's why we hadn't sent it out yet.
And we had mentioned that it's
Megan,
going to be
which-
in a little different format when it comes out. So it's going to have like an intro at the top, and then this next portion is going to be the more interactive. You'll notice like when it says fill in the blank, it's going to have a blank. So it's not going to look exactly like a Word document, but y'all kind of see the breakdown draft of it.
Okay, Megan, I just sent that to you. I hope there's not another Megan Marks. I think I got it to the right email. Yeah, so we were just reviewing the content, and then we would talk a little bit about the format, and Elizabeth can share a little bit more about that and how that will show up. We're testing it on Oregon Buys, so we're very excited to get to go with Smartsheet format for this. So, any other feedback that you would like to offer?
I'll have some later. I've just printed and read ahead. So when we get there, I'll.
That other portion of the programming that Live, Grow, Share provides through Lotus House is the choice program and services, I think. You may be aware of it.
I've heard that term.
Commitment.
Our area is really around capital investments. So we don't get as involved in the services and program side of things, but it is, I love hearing about it though, for sure.
Yeah. where it says, fill in the blank, there's just gonna be like a box for input in the form, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think now, Elizabeth, if you don't mind to explain a little bit how about how it will work in the Smartsheet format, that there's logics that she puts in there. So if they answer in a certain way, it takes them in a direction. Um, that's why the fill in the blank, what the fill in the blank comments about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so this portion, starting with contact information and down, this would all go into a Smartsheet form. And basically, so where you see it says fill in the blank, that would be the organization or the person applying on behalf of the organization would enter in their information. So pretty straightforward on that one. For project description, when it talks about project type and select all that may apply from the list below, so they will have a little list where they can select it from the drop down. And again, that will kind of auto generate those responses for them. The nice part about the Smartsheet is it exports it to Excel. So for us, for review purposes, a lot of this kind of preliminary information will go there. And then we are also at the very end asking them to attach some more detailed information that would be far too expansive to get into an Excel document. Um, and then again, same thing for housing type. So selecting any and all that may apply from the list. So we are going to give them the option to select more than one on this list, just in case it has something that maybe crosses over into multiple. Anticipated capacity. So there you see it says logic. So it says, will this project result in new beds? Yes or no? So if they answer yes, then it will generate a subsequent question that would tell us what is the total of new beds coming from this project. If it says no, then we would say, can you tell us how many beds this would preserve, if any, and give a space for them to include that response as well. So depending on how they respond, that logic question will generate a different subsequent follow-up question. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Why would you allow them to, for the same project, select two different housing types?
Well, for example, we have seen projects where maybe they're doing, for example, an SUD residential, and they also have withdrawal management beds as
Within the
part of
same
that.
within the same building. Okay, perfect.
Yes, yeah. So
That's
we would
okay.
just want to make sure that we're explicit, like very explicitly clear on that with them, so that way we're capturing any and all
Yeah. Okay.
options. Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
not, I'm guessing that has more application on the SUD side than it does on the mental health.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
correct. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And it also will kind of, that that helps provide transparency about their proposal and plan as well. So if it happens to go into the more mental health support services side of things, and we see that they're selecting multiple options that may be in conflict with one another, that's a conversation we can have early on, and loop in licensing. So there's definitely benefits to getting that full scope of kind of what their plan is right out of the gate. Let's see. So ADA accessibility, we did kind of put in some information about the rule around this and asking for them to briefly describe how that would be, how their plans would be designed to accommodate individuals with disabilities. Owning or lease, that's just checking one or the other. Project completion timeframe. So this is just to give us an idea once they receive funding, what they anticipate their project completion timeframe would be. So, once funding is obtained, do they think that they'll be able to make the necessary renovation or updates within a year, 2 years, whatever that might look like, if known. And then funding. So this one is also one where we have them fill in some information and then additional logic questions. So in particular, we've asked if they have binding commitments from other funding sources. So if they already have funding that they have identified as going to this project, then we would ask them to tell us if yes, who has committed, has agreed to be committing funding and how much. And if no, then it'll just jump them down to the next question. Um, and then we get into the attachment request. So this was more,
It looks like Chris has a
oh,
question.
sorry.
Yeah, I
Go
just
ahead,
have
Chris.
I know when this was not smart sheets or whatever, as part of these applications, somebody would actually have, if they say they had bank financing, they would have to submit proof that they had that financing. Is that the same here, or somebody's just attesting, hey, we've got this?
Yeah, so in these cases, what's been helpful for us is if we ask people about other funding just to see, so if they're, because we're asking about the total project cost and then how much they're asking from OHA from,
Right.
from this funding stream. And so it's been helpful for us to get a more comprehensive view of what other funding that is that they have
No,
available to them.
I
So,
understand that.
oh,
What my question is in the past, in
mm-hmm,
these applications, when someone applies, is if they say we have conventional financing, they would
mm-hmm.
actually have to submit a letter from the financial institution
Oh.
demonstrating that they had that commitment. Is that similar here, or you're just taking it on faith, and when somebody clicks yes, something, forgive me, and I'm gonna have to draw, I have a contractor here. Anyway,
Oh,
I think
sure.
you understand my question.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. In the past, we have not required verification of that.
Okay,
But this is a different situation with this it being, 35%. So I think that's something we should consider and talk about.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And forgive me, I gotta drop off for just a minute while I go attend to a contractor, and then I'll be back. I do have some comments or potential questions on the project proposal piece, so if you can put a pin in that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so and on this piece here for the attachment, so this is again for them to include a document that is giving us more additional information about their project proposal. And if they have a draft budget that they could provide for consideration, again, that would assist us in identifying that it's meeting that percentage threshold that is required for this funding source, and also just kind of better explain their plan as a whole. And then we also go into more community assessment. And this would actually be a really great place to add the information about peer support services. I was thinking about that when you mentioned that, Luke, that this would be great in this section. So we can certainly draft up a question and add that to this as well.
Yeah, I was also going to point out if there's any like specific focus on an ethnicity or at-risk community, diversity, equity, inclusion components. This would be maybe a good spot for that too. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Yeah, and I think we tried to touch on that in this first section. Yes, and then also, yeah, so that's kind of our OHA statement, and then that next paragraph, as well as I think yeah, the next one, and then the last one. But yeah, we can definitely maybe kind of put that together. I wonder if that would flow a little bit better to have that and then ask the CCO question at the end. Yeah. And let's see, I don't know. Layla, I can try to share this link with you and see if you can let me know if you can open it. I was thinking it might be helpful just to kind of see what this it's not
Oh,
yeah, I have an RFI example open. Um and Layla, I will send that to you because you're presenting right now. Is that right?
That's correct.
Let's see if this will let you open it. I tried to reactivate an old one just so you all could kind of see what that, kind of how it presents, but I don't know. See if that'll work, Layla.
while you're doing that, Jamaica, the 35% max is the way the funding appropriation was written up. So the way it's written is that the funding amount from this funding source can be a maximum of 35% of the overall budget, unless with the caveat that OHA has the ability to waive that maximum if it's a low cost project or it meets the need of a rural community. Does that make sense?
Is it possible to increase the font size a little bit?
Yeah, and again, this information is relevant to a different a request. It was a request for information that we did, so it's a different content but similar format. So I just thought it might be helpful, just to get an idea of how this would present for someone if they were to open up the RFGA link and for the smart sheet, just to see. Um, we have the yeah, exactly. So we've got that kind of the similar similar format down here for the fill in the blank on some of these. Oh, Megan, I'm sorry, you have your hand up.
Sorry, yeah, just to go back a minute to the 35%. So if a project wants to be considered to have that 35% limit waived, is there some place here for them to say that?
Um, oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's an interesting.
Because I see it up here in the first paragraph, but I
Yeah, so
don't
there should
see
be
a place where it says we'd like to request a waiver.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you, Megan. I think what we could do is add a question that says, does your project meet critical need in a rural community? And then have logic going there, or is your project considered low cost? Which there's not a definition for low cost, so I'm a little bit not wanting to put that specific of a question in there around the low cost, but we could I think it would make a lot of sense to do that with the rural. Does it meet a rural need? I'm sorry, I've been pronouncing your name incorrectly. It's Megan. Is that right?
Yeah, thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Yeah. Well, now you have two of us. That makes it even more confusing. So,
Actually, it makes it easier.
oh, good. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
When I heard that the first time, I was thinking that'd be a good spot to also add the underserved part. The rural, low cost, underserved population seems like maybe an important one to add, because I was talking about that earlier, those that fall through the cracks. Who's got the awareness
Mhm.
for them too,
Mhm.
but that's just
Mhm.
a proposal
Yeah, no, that's very
suggestion.
good. Yeah, this is really good feedback. Thank you. So did this give you running it through the formatting the spreadsheet hopefully, or the smart sheet? Hopefully that gives you an idea of kind of what would be on the applicant's end as they open it. Would be the way that the information would be presented.
I noticed the old logo for OHA up at the top of that example you gave us. I like the new one better, of course.
Yes,
Top, yeah.
we've been struggling with Smartsheet does not want to save the new one for some reason. It keeps defaulting to that one, so I'm gonna have to get some tech support to get that updated because yeah, I ran into that and could not get a workaround to make it stick. But it's
Maybe
on.
maybe ask the legal department to contact the AI and to go get something.
Yeah, so that's an example of one of those logic questions. So depending on how it's answered, it will generate kind of that subsequent pop-up question. Um, so yeah, it's very easy to for folks to fill out. We do technical assistance sessions too to offer support if there's questions or if anyone has trouble, they can always come to that and say, "Hey, I'm having issues with XYZ." But we haven't encountered that sort of feedback. Usually, questions are more related to kind of, you know, programmatic questions of how would this fit into this or how should so it's not necessarily application of use of the smart sheet, which is good.
And I apologize, but I had a meeting that was unexpectedly added to my schedule. So I'm very sorry. I'm gonna need to hop over there, but you're in good hands with my team here. So thanks.
Thanks, LaDonna.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think this is the file upload for that attachment. So very easy. Again, they can just drag and drop, or they can browse and do a search and be able to pull that up pretty easily. They can request a copy. But then, yeah, as soon as it's submitted, it will pop up kind of in Smartsheets for us into kind of a Excel style format that we can then export and kind of better organize for our internal review and vetting process that we go through. So definitely will make that portion of it, I think, much easier for everyone to do. Oh, Luke, you're muted.
Oh, I was just commenting that I was pleased to see the interest in adding the underserved component. I saw the typing there. Thank you.
Something we've said since standing up this committee, it's like we really want to hear from y'all, your subject matter experts. The legislature outlined who they wanted, the voices they wanted on the advisory group. So it's really important for us to hear you and to get feedback. We wanted to provide the bare bones and give you a document to work with, but really we love to hear the feedback and want to collaborate. So I appreciate you speaking up and
Cool.
giving advice.
Thank you, Leila. I want to take like 10 seconds to also add that when the aid and assist, which is also 370, which I mentioned earlier, became this big crisis, beds were taken away from the PSRB population's houses to cater to that, to alleviate that crisis. And it's happening even more so now than it was initially. So we really, really, really do need to muster some support for those of us under the PSRB, because it's taking us so long to get placed in the community, even longer now. It's always for a long time been a really high need community, even worse now. Thank you.
And the groups, they're on this form 370.
Yeah, they like half of the beds at the houses have been going to aid and assist populations, and it's even more so now. Yeah.
The most.
Megan?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to go back to this issue about the waiving the 35% limit. And I heard LaDonna say that there's not a definition for low cost project. And if there's no direction provided to applicants about what that is, I can see that becoming an issue, because low cost means one thing to one person and something else to someone else. And I mean, we want this to be successful. So the more we can fill in the blank, I think, and leave that undisputed, I think that would be better. So I don't know what we need to do. And I always turn to Chris for all the answers. And now that he's back, I'm going to turn to Chris for all the answers again. I don't know what that means, but I think we need to define it before we go out there with this.
So I'm sorry I missed that comment, Megan, and I apologize. Like I said,
That's okay.
the contractors give you a window, and he hit the first window, which
Gotcha.
shocked.
Right?
But my comment had to do with the project proposal, which you probably already have discussed. Is there going to be some specificity in the questions, or is this the question? Provide a description.
Is that on are you referring to the Word document? Layla,
Yeah, it
do
says
you still
project
have that
proposal.
available?
Provide a detailed description of your project proposal, including a draft budget for consideration. Additionally, outline your plan for operational sustainability once the project is completed. Is that the entirety of the direction to applicants?
For the project proposal piece, that was kind of because this is in addition to the information that we've already asked about above, which so we found ourselves wanting to just kind of open it to have them cover anything that hasn't already yet been covered in the preceding questions. But if you have additional suggestions or verbiage that we can consider to add in there, we can certainly do that.
I mean, again, you could get conceivably more applications than there's money for, or you could get fewer. But if you don't know who the provider is, how they provide services, what some of their policies are, I would hesitate to give money to anybody without them describing, answering specific questions like they used to do on previous applications for this type of funding. And so I guess I can try to go dig out some of those applications. I don't know that I'll be successful in finding them, but I would wonder if we couldn't consult with licensing or whomever to come up with some questions that really speak to, does the provider have, what is the provider's policy, for example, on XYZ? How is this going to be staffed? I mean, just getting into what actually will happen within the four walls versus just, hey, tell us what you're going to do, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be too onerous. The applications in the past were rather onerous. We're in a time when maybe we need to lean more towards getting money out the door versus really, dotting every T or dotting every I, crossing every T. But without some guidance, I wouldn't know how to judge one application against another if I don't have something there that helps me have like information to be able to score an application against another application.
And like what Megan was saying, the low cost is kind of, it's relative. It depends on how much people consider low cost depending on their budget, so something identifying something like the federal poverty level or something like that gives people an understanding of what we're looking at for the range of cap, shall we say, for qualification in that low cost. That's good, just going to save us a lot of work, I think, to filter out in the end.
I thought I saw another hand up.
I think
You did. It was me.
Oh, good.
And thanks,
Go ahead.
thanks
Yeah, sorry.
again. I mean, it was like a breath of fresh air when I heard these were going to be done on smart sheets. And I want us to keep in mind for the smaller agencies like myself, we don't have a grant writing team. We don't have the grant writer. In fact, you're looking at her. So the more cumbersome this becomes, it takes time away from, while, I understand there's a standard here. However, I mean, historically, we don't get the money for infrastructure and technical support. And I'm doing this, so if we could just be mindful of that and make sure that that equity piece, and I got access to the money just like the people with the robust team of grant writers or professional grant writers, I would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and Chris, to go back to your point, and maybe we can, so I think, initially we didn't dive too deep into service delivery and staffing and that sort of thing, only because we don't typically move into that service operational piece of it. And so our area of expertise is really more focused on that capital development and just kind of initial startup support. So I see what you're saying, and I think that's important. And so maybe we can kind of come up with some specific things that the group um, would like to make sure that we call out specifically to get more information on. Um, and then I think, as part of the review process, we would need to make sure that we have people at the table that have more insight and expertise to best score and review that part of it. And usually that's something that we've done even with RFI responses. So that's not even a formal solicitation process, but we've certainly been very aware of needing to bring different representation there for that aspect and consideration of, service delivery. If there have been licensing concerns, do they, really we want to see kind of also what's their involvement been with the community, their additional ongoing education and interest in that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I would love to get everyone's thoughts on maybe some key points that would be helpful to include.
I just think we need to ask in this area some prompts that people can then fill in. So then you don't necessarily have to be a professional grant writer. And the prompts need to be specific to how care. So there's capital, that's great, but then there's quality of care. And these are the questions designed to evaluate quality of care. And quality of care is just as important, if not more important, than capital. And so we don't want to give capital to somebody who can't articulate that they're going to provide quality care. And I don't know specifically what that looks like. If the expertise isn't within this team, I would suspect somewhere in OHA, somebody can give you some sample questions to sort of float by folks to say, hey, does this address that? And when it comes to scoring, we scored when back in the day, and the other allocations of this money, a committee came together, scored the whole application, except for the real technical financial piece, which you need that background. And so others would score some of the real more complex financing pieces because they had the financial backing. But the quality of care piece, that's a general audience.
Megan, you want to go ahead?
Sure. And I'm not volunteering to do this. I'm going to say that right off the bat. But Chris, are you talking about when you say that, what I envision in my mind is asking a question like, do you as an organization have policies and procedures that address A, B, C, D, E? Do you as an organization use the following credentialing or recognize the following credentials for employees in your organization and list out?
I think that could be, but that's more of a yes, no.
Right.
I'd like to read what is your philosophy on delivering care? I mean, I don't know that that's the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I will try to go back and see if I can find the applications from the last round of money out of this investment fund.
Mm-hmm.
Because it did contain some of those questions, but it really was demonstrating that the provider had a philosophy and could articulate that philosophy in a manner that reassured the taxpaying public that this money would actually be spent wisely.
Right. And I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to balance that against what Jamaica said and trying to streamline it so that it's not too challenging to do it.
Right. I just don't know what those specific questions are. I
Yeah.
don't know that a question is, describe your policies around X, Y, and Z. It seems to me that a yes, no question could be, do you have policies in place that address these things? Because that also will be addressed in licensing. If I'm going to score an application and I have to pit one application against another, I want some information and I want to read how they articulate, how will they care for people. And I'll try to go find some questions, but I would also posit that somewhere in OHA, somebody has expertise that can suggest a couple of questions that reveal that without being onerous.
And I see two hands up. Jamaica, I think you were first. Is that right?
Thank you. I appreciate what you had to say, Chris. And I think it sounds to me as if some of the questions is crossing over into compliance and licensing. And that's really not what this grant is about. And that we're held to a standard of equality for care through our audits. Just saying.
That's not how this money has been allocated in the past. Every time there has been allocation of this money, people are asked, and it's a legitimate question, what is your philosophy on care? No, I would argue this isn't licensing. But
Well, I don't
licensing,
want to argue at all.
yeah, but well, I'm not arguing, but I'm not after licensing and compliance. What I'm after is what is the underpinning of your proposal, and what is a provider's philosophy? If they are going to tailor to a specific population, why and how? Why is that important to do it, and what are the modifications that are necessary to address that population's particular needs? Those are the type of things that are revealing to me that aren't compliance and licensing, right? They're for lack of a better word, they're philosophy. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the apt word either.
I have to get off about 5 minutes early, so I'm just going to end with this. I like the idea of moving away from just a yes no, because we don't have any way of like verifying whether there's substance to that. But if we ask for them to elaborate just a little bit on their philosophy or the practices of their business, then we can get an impression of that like fidelity or the substance into that more so than just a yes no basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, and Layla, I don't know if you still have the document open, but in the attachment section, I'm wondering if this could just be tied into, like, if we could elaborate further on, because we do speak to equity and inclusion and OHA's goal and ask some subsequent questions about that. And I'm wondering if we just want to be more explicit about, tell us about the policies and procedures that you have in place that support this effort, right? So we're highlighting, the need to really be um, responsive and relevant with their philosophy and their service application, but maybe that would be a good way to do that without maybe leaning too far into more kind of service to, or I mean, like more licensing related responses. Because I also want to make sure that we want to be clear in how that's presented so the interpretation and the response is what we're looking for, right? I think that's one of the biggest concerns with that is everybody reads something a little bit differently. So we want to be very explicit, but also tie it to the appropriate sort of framework. So perhaps we can rework that a bit and send that out to you all and get some additional feedback from everyone if that would be helpful. Awesome. Any other final comments, concerns, questions? We really appreciate the dialogue. Thank you, everyone, and also apologies that we weren't able to get this out to you all sooner. We appreciate you being flexible and working with us. Thank you.
Looks like we have some revising and we can bring it back to you all in the future.
Yeah, we'll work on this right away and then get that sent out. So appreciate everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a good
Hear from
afternoon.
us soon.
Thank you all. And Elizabeth, your smart sheet idea, it just blows me away. It's so cool. And I'm
Oh, thank you.
wishing we had people like you where I worked before that would have helped with so much. You
Very
are
Oh,
accessible.
that's
Talk
just
about
smart
accessibility.
cookie.
awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.